Hello everyone and welcome along to your Monday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host. This evening we avoided the Sunday night slot this time around, just a one-off avoiding of the Sunday night slot, but it's hard to compete with the Euros final. So we have decided to send out a pod on the Monday instead, and hopefully everyone's now looking forward to club football, or at least got their mind on club football. Maybe not looking forward to if you've heard Philippe Clement's comments. Over the weekend, I'm joined by John Walker and Ian Mitchell. How are you both doing?
Awesome. See, because this is pre-recorded, should we be doing some sort of like prediction on what the England game is and just being like, I cannot believe Harry Kane missed that penalty and it's taken on the Euros?
Yeah. You've already broken down that. Is it the third wall or the fourth wall? The fourth wall, yeah. You've already broken that down within 20 seconds of the pod. So that's great for that one, John. Yes, we are pre-recording this on Sunday afternoon as we look back over, I guess, the game as Rangers took on Ajax, but more the fallout afterwards in terms of Philippe Clement's comments. So let's first start by, and just in case you missed them, I'll read out what Philippe Clement said, particularly in reference to a question around if he has to wait for players to be sold before he can then buy more players. He said, it's the reality that the board have told me a few months ago. I know this, the recruitment team knows this also. It's the reality of the club. I had other expectations when I came in October, I have to say, but I know the reality now. I am very motivated to build the club, and helping that is focusing not only on the short term, but also on the long term. If I only looked at the short term, I would only bring in experienced players who can do the job directly. Mistakes like that have been made too much in the past, and at the end, you don't reach your goals. You need a different philosophy, and that's what we are all working towards. It's a massive rebuilding job. It's true. John, I'll come to you. First of all, what's your reaction to those comments?
I think the first thing is I'm not surprised. I think we've kind of been teetering on this suspicion for a while, and it's something I've been kind of vocal about all over Scottish football. There's no money in Scottish football, so the fact that we keep spending 35 million in wages and transfers every single season as if it's normal behaviour for a team that's main income is season ticket money, and it's why we take our season ticket money so early in large chunks, is so they can go and spend some of that money. If we don't have money, we shouldn't be spending it, and that's been the case for the last 6 seasons. And it's a big problem I've got with football in general, but specifically Scottish football. You need to stop. We need to stop at some point. We've already had it happen to us. There's tens of clubs around Scotland that are liquidating and admin, folding, rebirthing themselves low down. People need to stop spending the money. See if Rangers have to be a team that can only finish second or third because there's no money there. We need to try and do something, fix something somewhere. But at least he's come out and said it, because I think we need to know that is exactly what the situation is.
Yeah, you've just said that we need to accept finishing second or third potentially, and I'm not sure that's going to go down well with many people. It doesn't sit right with me anyway. The thought of that, as long as we're challenging, that is kind of where I think we need to be.
What happened the last time we didn't accept that second would be okay? Yeah. We ended up top of the third division. That's what happened.
Aye, but I think there's a lot that can be fixed in the club to get us closer to that without spending the significant amounts of money, I think. Ian, what was your reaction to Philippe Clement's comments?
Pretty similar, to be honest. The one thing I did take from it is the fact that he did kind of keep mentioning the rebuild, and the fact that we all kind of know we need this. Like, there's so much deadwood at the club, there's so much players that need moved on. He fronted up and said it, which I kind of wanted to hear. As John said, we might need to go through a bit of pain before it pays off, but if we're bringing in guys that have this kind of pre-peak age, kind of early 20s, if just 2 or 3 of them come off and are successful, then that could be a massive windfall right there. So as the right strategy, I wasn't too shocked at anything he said. I saw a bit of a meltdown obviously after it, and obviously the comment about the board maybe saying one thing and something else being true is probably the main takeaway for me in terms of a red flag there. But I think he backed up after it by saying, despite that, he's still determined to succeed. He still has that love for the club already. So no major surprise, and just hopefully he gets the time to put things right, really.
Yeah, Ian, I'll stick with you. Did you take that as him having a bit of a shot at the board, or did you see it more as managing fan expectations? He knows how demanding Rangers fans can be, even from his sort of 8 months in charge so far. Do you think he's trying to manage fan expectations of what next season can hold and really how far the team will be able to push?
Pretty split on it. I'm trying to read between the lines through all the comments and stuff, but at first I did think he's just trying to calm the fans down, make us know that there's going to be some sales first so they can generate the money, know what we've got to play with, and then reinvest that. But I don't think you can see past it being a bit of a dig, whether that's at the board or at, like, not Neil's Coppin as such, but the fact that we've not sold any players yet. Like, I thought at this point, mid-July, we'd be well underway in terms of sales. Like, we'd have 4, 5, 6 bodies at the door. And I think everyone kind of had a massive sigh seeing that starting lineup yesterday, albeit it's a friendly, means absolutely nothing. But some of the names on that team sheet, we just don't want to see anymore, to be honest. So I don't really think you can see it as anything other than a slight dig at someone, whether that's the board, whether that's agents, whether that's at players themselves not doing all they can to move on, which they don't need to, obviously. But it definitely felt like a bit of shade was thrown in there at someone.
John, Iain mentioned there that he was expecting 4, 5, 6 players to be already out the door with money coming in. Was that where you expected it to be? Obviously, the transfer window, especially when there's major tournaments on, it tends to be later on that the activity begins than a normal summer, just because whether teams are waiting for, it probably starts at the top, doesn't it? Because it's always the transfer window is always this trickle down kind of thing, and we're quite far down that in terms of when the money starts to flow through and when the decisions are made at the bigger clubs. So were you in the same boat as Iain in terms of expecting more people to out the door by now, or were you kind of, it's actually going to be a bit later in the summer that happens?
I think it's just the dependency on where scouts, agents are just now. I'd imagine scouts, agents are all at the Euros. Whether you're an agent with a Sam Lammers on your books, but you might be part of a bigger agency within that are all at the Euros with your clients and the prawn sandwich brigade with the hospitality, because your company is involved in that, and the same with the scouting teams. I reckon most people are just completely off-site and no attention to be paid. There's not really been anything at all. Even like Mbappe's move that we knew had happened wasn't fully finalised and approved and signed off and all done, like, until then. And the only issue we've got is our league starts back so sharp. I mean, you've already got Scottish competitive games happening yesterday. So we're already back. Our league started and we are the bottom of that food chain where we need to wait for things to happen. I'm surprised at the likes of Sam Lammers. I'm surprised because he had such a good loan spell that there weren't people lining up for him to get that finalised. I don't know if we've maybe been hanging on for somebody better to come in with more money than what was previously available, but I'm surprised at him. We don't really know who else is available. We are still kind of guessing. We're basing that on the umpteen stories that the Daily Record want to publish every single second day about the Saudi money for Tavernier and Goldson. Until there's something coming in and something firm, I don't know what you do. You can't force people to take a Scot right off your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the issue in terms of we are desperately trying to get rid of 6, 7, 8 players, probably more than that. But you need clubs to be interested to take them, and that's part of the issue as well. And a lot of these players are on pretty high wages, probably wages that they won't be able to emulate anywhere else they go. So they'll probably be clinging on to that a little bit and seeing how they can maximise either the money they're getting from Rangers or the money they're getting from elsewhere. Not every professional footballer wants to just go and play football. It's a career and a livelihood at the end of the day, and you see it quite often that some players are just quite happy to, if they see they're at the peak of their earning power, they'll just sit and take that contract for as long as they can.
To be honest, sorry to interrupt, but I'd be doing the exact same. If somebody's giving me 30 grand to sit in my arse, or 10 grand to go and play in the English League One, for example, I'm sitting in my arse. It's just the fact in life.
Yeah, I think there's many examples of that through Scottish football and through the sort of the history of the old firm clubs, especially over the last 10 years or so. John, sticking with you, how frustrating is it to hear that Philippe Clement was told one thing and then the reality has turned out to be something else?
I mean, that's all. It feels like it's not unexpected. I don't know if that's a kind of diss at people that were previously involved. If whoever he had those discussions with, it could be someone that's particularly not at the club anymore. It's a hard one. I feel like we've invested Diomande. We did get Fabio Silva in for him, and that was a costly one. So there are some examples of transfers that we went and got for him. I wouldn't shy away from the fact that I think he had a big enough squad and a better squad than Celtic at the time, and a 6-point lead that we should have actually won the title. So regardless of what you were promised in October, maybe if you had definitely secured the title and the 25-30 million windfall of Champions League group stage football, maybe some of that stuff was caveated and you just weren't privy to those conversations being the case. And that's why there was money spent in January to make sure you get your 2 loan signings up front.
It feels there, John. It feels there that you're kind of blaming. You're saying it's Clements' fault that he's not won the league. I get that we were 6 points ahead, but our injuries last season were insane, and they killed us at the end of the day.
We can remove the phrase last season because the injuries have been the same for the previous 3 seasons, and it looks like, judging by the first game of pre-season I watched the highlights of, we're going to be in for the same ride again. So let's just get used to it and never having a full squad for a start. I'm not blaming Clement, but I think there's probably been discussions that have been, yes, there's money available, but behind the scenes it's very much, we need to make sure we get Champions League football. You need to secure that, and hopefully we can sell X, Y, and Z to make sure that income keeps happening. For me, I'm just constantly going to push the boat out. I think Rangers just need to be self-sustaining, and right now they're not. We literally pay for everything. We do. The fans pay for everything with the season ticket money and the constant buying of 4 kits. Like I do not believe there's another club with the lack of income elsewhere that relies as heavily as we do on our fans.
Ian, John mentions the fans there, and we're all Rangers fans, and we all buy all the kits, and we all we're all sort of suckered into doing all of that. But it's because obviously we love the club and we want to see them do well. But how it feels a bit like that patience is really running out with a lot of people and with a lot of fans now. Is that the impression you're getting?
It has to be, really. I was obviously on the pod with Kyle last week, just kind of generally chatting about this and the fact that we had to hear from Bennett, just hear a bit more about the stadium situation, a bit more clarity. We've had that to some extent at this point, just with the sort of news that came out the other day about Hampden being the go-to, so that has been there in some way, but it still just feels like every area has a problem just now. Like the playing squad has a problem, the boardroom has a problem, the stadium's an issue, the backroom staff, like the whole head of youth, head of scout, everything's just a little bit too messy just now for a club of our size. I don't know if all this kind of comes down to whether we do get Champions League football or not, because obviously that's going to be determined by the end of the transfer window, I'm pretty sure. So whether we're just kind of waiting for that to know again how much we've got to spend and stuff, and that might just be this massive delay that no one's really mentioned at some point, but it just feels... It's always challenging being a Rangers fan. I think we all know that from over the years. It's been a tough few years anyway. But this point just feels like it's very close to breaking point with a lot of fans. And if the season does start badly, we've all got a very simple thing to blame straight off the bat, which isn't going to help Clement, it's not going to help the players, and it's certainly not going to help the guys that are making the decisions. John,
how do we... This is a really difficult question to answer, but how do we almost get out our own way and stop shooting ourselves in the foot? It feels like that's all we do constantly. How do we get out of that cycle of doing that?
I think you need to start putting things in place. I think he kind of alluded to it a little bit in his comments. See us as a club, see signing somebody over the age of 26. Unless they are a decision maker and they're going to win as a league. It's not even debatable. They're going to win as a league. We don't sign them anymore. We literally just have a transfer policy that says we don't sign 26-year-olds. And in fact, we don't spend over X amount of money in a transfer. We do not go over a wage budget of Y. We stay within those means all the time. And literally only in exceptional circumstances. But what we've been doing is signing 2 or 3 people on types of money that we don't have to spend, and they come with a risk. I'm going to try my best this season not to do it if he's still with us. But Cyril Dessers' background, if you put a transfer in front of me, I would always have said he's never going to be a person that's going to win us a title with his goals. And we spent a good transfer fee and great wages to bring him here. Those are the transfers that would have been getting vetoed. There's no sale on him. The best you're going to do is recoup his money if it doesn't work. I think it needs to be people like Conor Baron. It needs to be people like Diamonde, although that's the caveat to Diamonde is you're signing him from a production line that does seem to sell people on for 2, 3, 4, 5 times the money that you got him for. So you can kind of trust that a little bit more. But it needs to be smarter. And for me, you need to start using your B team. See if it's a long rebuild. Why are we not sitting Clement down and offering them a 5-year deal and going, do you know what, right? If it's a long rebuild and you believe you're the man to beat Rangers, here's 5 years. Here's 5 years in the job. Within 5 years, is Rangers to be continually in the Champions League for the last 3 seasons of that 5-year deal, winning trophies continually, winning the title, overtaking Celtic, and you've had X amount of B-team players come through you. We've sold some of those B-team players for good money, like we did with Patterson, and we continually create that production line. And then
is it not the risk? I know you say about wanting a 5-year deal. Obviously, we've been in a cycle, and I've spoken on the podcast previously around we need to get out the cycle of every October we sack a manager, and then you've got a new manager comes in and he gets 8 months. We obviously need to get out of that cycle. It's a 5-year deal, not taking it to the other extreme, do you think?
As arrogant as this sounds, we're never going to drop below second. And we're always going to have consistent European football with the opportunity to get the Champions League. We're always going to have that. Unless an absolute catastrophe happens or we have to sell a full squad and the B team isn't even equipped with the ability to be good enough in the SPFL, unless that completely happened, we would always finish second in this league. We would always have a chance at Champions League qualification, and we would always have guaranteed European football up until after Christmas now. So that income is there. I think you then maybe shut people like me up and you go, look, if the club is this fucked and we need to do a massive rebuild, then you get off the manager's back. It's as simple as that. You just need to suck it up and start focusing on, right, well, see the remit of playing academy players and start bringing people through that are the right age and going to improve us. Is that happening? Is players like Alex Lowry becoming to perform? Because I believe when I look at like Alex Lowry and Bailey Rice, although he's still very, very young, when I look at them, they look like players that are stagnating because they're not getting challenged at the level they need to be. Yep. I think you would see Leon King, Alex Lowry, Bailey Rice shoot up surprisingly at the level because they need challenged. B team's not doing it. Lower league's not doing it. Going out on loan is going to kill them as far as I'm concerned because you're not going to find the right environment to create a Rangers player. So you just need to almost force them in the Rangers first team and see if they sink or swim. And I think if you did those kind of moves, you would see more positive. But I think in the short term, you'd have fans going, this is shite, the football's not good enough. But if you've got a coach and manager that you trust, and then within him, you then go, right, well, what would you see as improving the academy? What sort of coach do you need to be in charge of the academy? And you actually let him start to get a stranglehold on Rangers as a club, and you build around what he wants. And you have to stick to the 5 years where you go, tough. This is what we're doing now for 5 years. We're going to build a full academy that's going to create Philippe Clement players, Philippe Clement style football under Philippe Clement coaches, and the proof will be in the pudding after 5 years. If we're in that dire straits where he keeps saying this is a long rebuild, and if I'm taking him at his word and he's not kind of fobbing off his impact on this, then you need to fix it somehow. Maybe we need to do something. And I think it's you need to create a full club, not just a first team.
Yeah, he kind of hinted at that in his comments as well, in terms of, and he's pretty much since he came in, he was so open about how annoyed he was about the overall fitness of the players and the team. He was so frustrated that the club had certain facilities, but the players weren't using them. There's obviously the cryo thing that came up when he first came in, but there's the club had all this stuff and the players were just doing whatever they wanted, effectively, I think was how it came across when Philippe Clement came in. So it does suggest that from the moment he entered the doors, he knew this was just, he had to start everything from scratch and get everything to the standards that he expects. And I think that's something that we've needed, especially since it does feel like Michael Beale kind of tore down a lot of that, which was completely against the expectations of anyone that when he first came in, I think. But it seems like Michael Beale tore down quite a bit of that. But John spoke there about the long rebuild as such. In terms of fan expectations going forward, Rangers fans are pretty well known for not being flexible or agile in adjusting their expectations, no matter what the circumstances are. How viable a thing do you think that is in terms of the fans buying into a longer term project and not getting frustrated if we're 5-6 points behind by Christmas?
Yeah, it's a very easy thing to say, and John's plan of like giving someone 5 years is perfect, but it's also probably perfect for every club, and yet you never see it these days. So my main thinking there is that if we lose that first game at Parkhead, what's that, probably end of August, wasn't it? We're going to play it at start of September, yeah. People start calling for him to get sacked. There'll be comments that he can't beat Celtic, he can't do it in the big games. All this will start coming up, which is nonsense because that's a tough fixture at any point, let alone how new our squad's going to be. But that's just a narrative that's going to get set straight away. So, like you say, if we go into Christmas and that winter period and we're 6, 7, 8 points behind, suddenly we've got a mountain to climb. There's going to be people saying that Clement's not the man. and to get rid. And then, like you say, we're back in this sort of constant spin. October, November, new manager, new approach, do well, lose, repeat. So whether the fan base can stomach that, if they see progress, I think that's quite big, because I don't want to start and talk about Celtic on a Rangers podcast, but when Ange came in, you could see the style from the get-go. You could see the kind of players he brought in from the get-go. So they lost, I think, was it Tynecastle they lost, and then they dropped at Livingston or something. There's a couple of games they dropped points anyway and were starting to fall away, but you could sort of see the style of play was coming. You could see the way Ange was getting them moving the ball and pressing and the comments and stuff. It was all kind of going the right way, just without the results. So when the results caught up, suddenly they were flying. That's kind of what we need to do with the guys that we're bringing in. Whether we can bring in that same level, whether they can click straight away, who knows? But I'm all for Clement, to be honest. I was kind of the same as what John was saying. Some points last season, you're looking at him like tactically and some of the players he was playing and not dropping and certain loyalties here and there. I wasn't kind of getting on board with. A few things I would have done differently, but I do think comments-wise, he is the man to take us forward. I like the signings that we're going for. I know we're going to kind of come on at the end here to talk about the kind of profile that we're looking for and a couple of rumours, but the rumours that I'm seeing make sense for the rebuild that I'm wanting. The guys that have come in make sense. You can see the potential. You can see the resale. So I'm all for Clement staying and sort of try to build this picture of what he's trying to do. Just as we say, if the fans can have that same patience, is a whole other topic.
Yeah, I thought you were going to avoid the question altogether there.
Yeah, just about
the houses and avoid the question altogether there, but you pulled it back at the end. John, we spoke about the lack of funds that we have for transfers and stuff. What do you make of the fact that we have spent £2 million on Hamza Igamani who's a project player? If the funds are as tricky or as tight as they seem to be, what do you make of that decision to spend that amount of money on a player that's not going to come in and make an instant impact?
Yeah, it's for me the concern is I don't know the player. I've only seen clips of the player. I've only seen some statistical data on the player. For me, I would be always more concerned that we don't have academy players that can be that type of player with the coaching. Because if you're signing a player that's potentially a project player and not an immediate starter, you're suggesting to me that we have the coaching staff to improve that player and bring him to the level that we can then play him, get the best out of him, and then sell him on so that £2 million is drop in the ocean as to why he returns. I just don't believe there's not 17, 18-year-olds within the Rangers Academy that would fit the same bill that aren't cost £2 million, and that £2 million can't be used to get 5 people in on the wages for the year. It's just, that's always going to be my issue. Is literally, if we don't have the money, we can't be spending any money. It's such an infuriation to turn around and tell us there's no money, but you've just spent £2 million on a player. There was £4.5 million spent on Diamonde. You've just got, I mean, how much does the season ticket money bring in? It must be about 30 odd million, right?
I've no idea off the top of my head, to be honest, but it must be up there at least, and it goes up every year as well, doesn't it? So there is money there. It's just what we're saying is, yes, there's this big overlying issue of people on huge wages that we can't shift until we transfer them out. That's fine. Maybe that £2 million is brought in as part of the Barisic and Lundstrom money no longer having been spent, and the guys' wages aren't that much, so they've went, well, £2 million off the balance sheet with their wages. We've covered it with this transfer fee and there. So maybe it's that, and we've budgeted for this, and it's already fits inside that. But it would be interesting to suggest that the £2 million on somebody that's a prospect would be it. But maybe I'm being a bit dismissive, and he has full belief in the fact that the coaching staff can make him at the level they need him to be to then in 3 months' time be a regular starter, and then in 18 months to 24 months' time is sold for good money, and then I'm not arguing with that. I don't mind if there's a transfer of a player like Diamonde that I can see coming in and going, right, maybe we'll get 15 million for him in a couple of seasons. Maybe that is the plan. And as long as those players are the exceptions, I still want to see. I want to see Scottish footballers or British footballers inside Rangers first team that we've brought through our academies. I think Ross McCausland, I think actually. I thought he was stagnating a little bit at the end of last season, but then flipped a little bit and thought he actually looked like he was getting better again. And I was like, well, maybe he's kind of over that natural kind of level again, and he's going to kick on again. I think a full pre-season again with the first team with all his experience, he'll come back, and those are the types of players that I want to see in my team. I don't want to see
random wingers from all over the world that have never cut it, the teams have cut it at, that are costing us money and good wages, when we probably have players of a good level in the academy that can come in and do a job.
I would caveat that by saying that we've not actually signed a decent winger for God knows how long. But Cortez is one that does excite me, to be fair.
Paid a lot of money in Rami Matonda, though.
That's very fair. Iain, how much, you spoke a bit about your reaction to the starting lineup against Ajax at the weekend. How much of a concern is, I guess, the overall answer that Philippe Clement gave, and the fact that we're 3 weeks away from rocking up at Tynecastle for the first game of the season? Always a difficult fixture anyway for us, and given that the squad looks very much similar to how it did at the end of last season, how much of a concern is that for you, not even mentioning the fact that Champions League qualifiers are fast on the back of that fixture as well?
I mean, it's not a nice feeling. I think if you look at it on paper, there's probably a starting 11 there that's good enough to win against Hearts. Like, Baron's obviously come in, he's an improvement. Whether Hefty's going to be better than Redvan, I don't know, but I always like Redvan, so I think there's a good starting 11 there. It's just, I think if you see guys like your Tavs, Goldson, Matondo's maybe another one in there, I just don't think they're going to get the fan support at this point. I think everyone's just a bit raw, everyone's a bit pissed off at the whole situation overall, that we need at least one or two first team signings in by that point. I think I'm still very worried about right wing in our team. I don't see who's going to play right wing. I've been saying this for probably 4 or 5 years now, obviously, but I just feel like if we got a kind of statement signing or two, everyone's morale just boosts, and you've got enough kind of pieces of the rest of the puzzle. Like, we're talking about Diomande, good player. Baron, good player. Danilo's obviously back. Whether he's fit enough to start is another question, obviously, but the defence is pretty set between Suter, if Stelling's fit. There's a good team there. It's just that we need a little bit of something to get us going as a fan base. I think if we start seeing rumours these next few days of, like I say, a winger, another centre-back, or just maybe a striker to replace Dessers, just something to give us all a lift, suddenly no one's too bothered about who's still here. It's more like, right, let's try and deal with those. Got another 6 weeks of the transfer window kind of thing. Plenty of time to get bodies out, but we need something just to rev us up a little bit. Just, it's a bit, as I say, that starting 11 yesterday just deflated. I knew it was going to be, but it still deflated you seeing it, and then try to piece together, like, who's the right winger here? Is Dowell playing right wing now? That's what we're trying here, kind of thing. So yeah, we need something just to give us all a bit of a boost, I think.
Yeah, John, I think I agree with you in terms of, we probably, if you make a marquee striker signing, for example, everyone's probably right. Okay, at least there's someone there we can maybe rely on to score us goals, and we'll create enough chances that they're going to score us. They're going to get the goals that we need to. I mean, we managed to get Cyril Dessers 20 plus goals last season, and he missed all the chances that he missed. So I think if you got that marquee striker signing, it probably changes the mood a little bit. Is that how you feel?
Any marquee signing, I think if it was an attacking midfielder that we thought were going to create 20, 30 chances, big chances in the league, and you're getting a good portion of assists out of them. But I think that's the concern, as if we've not got the money, we're not making a marquee signing. I think that's probably needs to be the expectation that Clements set. And I think then maybe that would potentially shut people up. I keep seeing that on Twitter that we've not signed any first team players. And you're like, well, maybe we're in a position where Conor Baron is the starting 11 player that we've signed.
I think going by how he played against Ajax, you would be quite encouraged by him coming into that midfield. And I would, even just seeing him for that short period of time, I would instantly put my head of Raskin, who were left in a protective boot anyway. But I think Conor Baron is a player that I kind of did see as being really competing for that first team.
And I think honestly, this is where I think football fans do not accept there is such a fine margin between looking like an average footballer at Aberdeen to jumping up a level and being so comfortable at Rangers, because there's examples of players that haven't done it and examples of players that have. Ryan Jack just slotted in perfectly. Scott Wright struggled. But then you're hitting the nail on the head around how much of being at Rangers is just the mentality of understanding the pressure. And we're all guilty of like fanning and fawning over like little comments. But I think if you look at the exact thing that winds Rangers fans up, Tavernier and Cantwell posting their Instagram highlight reels, and in the same breath, Conor Baron's been asked about social media, and he's like, I don't look look at social media, I'm focused on playing for Rangers. And then fans kind of just automatically jump on board with him, and that's him. He's got full support of everyone at the club now, and it's just those little bits of mentality where you go, there's not a lot of football ability between a Scott Wright and try to think of maybe a Lyle Abada if I'm using the positions and what I think they bring to games. Fast wingers, decent at dribbling with the ball. They do get in the box. But I think Scott Wright just doesn't have the mentality to be good enough consistently. And I think like the likes of Lyle Abada did have that. I don't think there's a big gap between Conor Baron and Stephen Davis. I think it's how do you come in and slot in and have the mentality to cope with, because Conor Baron's going to face the reality of this at some point soon, as he's going to play a shite pass and cost a goal, or he's going to do a poor tackle and get sent off. He's going to have some sort of mountain to climb as a Rangers player, and it's how you're going to respond, and then we'll find out if Conor Baron is a player that's going to be a first team player. Hefty's the same. We've signed this left back who in all the highlights looks amazing. Wait till he starts getting groaned at for passing the ball backwards. Does he then become a Borna Barisic where he's a shite bag and he plays within himself? You don't know until it starts happening. You can tell me that, oh, we need to sign this player. Dessers scored 20 odd goals for us. Dessers was perfectly fine, but he's not got a mentality to be Rangers centre forward that's going to win a title as far as I'm concerned. So it's all these little bits of what is a marquee signing. I think Conor Baron could end up being the most important signing we've made, but it's not a signing that we all jumped on board and we're going to flock to Ibrox and 30,000 people to see him on field. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think also fan expectations. We've signed many players who we've expected to come in and hit the ground running and make real differences. You look at even the likes of Todd Cantwell, Tom Lawrence, etc., who you expect to just come up and make a real difference in key positions, and they've not, for me, hit the heights that are hit anywhere near the heights that you'd even deem acceptable. To be honest, I know Cantwell has the odd moment here and there, but he needs to do it consistently, and we've not had that at all. It'll be really interesting, and might as well come on to that just now around how he feels going to leave. Now there's the usual names that everyone's kind of expected, probably the 5 or 6 that Iain was thinking of at the start in terms of Dessers, Lammers, Hadji, Goldson. You're probably looking at James Tavernier in there as well. And then there's a few players where there's been some suggestion, I think, or people are trying to read between the lines at what's happening in pre-season and who they're seeing in training pictures and all that sort of stuff. Iain, Todd Cantwell, I think, has been the notable absentee, particularly because he seemed to be training every day, but then not in the squad at all for the game against Ajax, which is a real contrast from what you expect. What did you make of that?
It told me that he's gone, to be honest. We're all watching the training videos. We see the full contact training. We see the kind of just passing it about. He's involved in everything, as far as I can tell. And if guys like all the B team boys are getting on, if Danilo's making an appearance, given his injury issues, I think it tells its own story, kind of thing. Especially when Clement was asked about it yesterday, and he was asked, "Oh, is it an injury for Cantwell?" And his particular wording was something about how Cantwell or Todd has issues going on or certain things going on. It wasn't an injury specifically. It was just more there's something going on there. So I think he's gone, to be honest. I think it was never really going to work out between Clement and Cantwell. I just don't see them having that relationship that Clement can trust Cantwell in the big games. We've obviously saw the first half sub in the Europa game. We've saw not getting starts at Parkhead, things like that. There's just been too many little examples. And then we look at all the social media crap that goes on. You touched on it there. If every Rangers player could deactivate their social media, I'd have a much happier lifestyle. But just the fact that there's little digs here and there, they clearly don't like each other. I think it's quite obvious in my eyes. And I think if we're looking at guys who can get us a bit of value, get some big wages off of the sort of wage budget, it makes sense to move him on. I don't know where he's going to go. I don't really see him going to like Saudi. I don't know. I just don't see that one going through. But you'd imagine a team in the Championship.
He might end up in Italy if his agent gets the right Instagram.
Possibly. Exactly. But I don't see us having a major problem moving him on. Again, he's a very good player. On his day, he's probably one of the best in this league, you'd have to say. But you touched on it yourself. He's not consistent enough. And I don't know if we're going to be changing shape this season. I'm not going to start talking about back 5 just now, but I can see us being a bit more like a flat 3 or maybe a defensive mid, especially with the links that we're looking at kind of thing. So where we don't just have a position for Cantwell anymore, it makes sense to move him on. And like I say, not seeing him even on the bench yesterday was kind of confirmation enough for me.
Yeah, John, two-part question for you since Ian mentioned shape. First of all, can you give me your thoughts on Todd Cantwell, and then we can start speaking about how does he fit into what it appears that the shape is that Philippe Clement is playing. But if you give me your thoughts on Todd Cantwell first, and if you think he'll be moving on.
I'd be gutted if Cantwell left, just because I don't think we've seen what I think is available from Todd Cantwell. Definitely not on a consistent basis, but not at the level I expected to see it anyway. I think Todd Cantwell is a player that has no real ceiling, but needs a very specific environment and a very specific coach. Because we've seen that in Norwich at the highest level. It was him and Buendia were like for like. Emi Buendia. They were very similar players, very similar quality, very similar technical ability, and creative numbers were all the same. One went for 40 million and one's still on an upward trajectory, and the others at Rangers kind of frozen out. To me, that is just not having, and he needs a very specific type of environment and person to look after him. It's very clear that Clement's not. I think that no matter what we wanted, that relationship was dead in that Reece home game. I don't know how. No player's going to react properly to that unless it was done for the protection of the player. The only time I can think of it is Rickson getting subbed off at Parkhead, where Advocat was literally protecting the player. It wasn't you're shy, I'll show you. It was literally I need to get him out of there. Before Bobby Pettit gets the Ballon d'Or or something, I need to get him off that pitch. So we stopped this. And Rickson went on to have an amazing Rangers career off the back of that because he was protected. Clements was 100%. You're not doing what I've asked you to do. Get off my pitch right now. And I don't think you ever come back to that. I think after that, it's just been professional. It's been like, right, well, I'm in training every day. If you need me, I'm here to play. When I'm on the pitch, I'll do my job. And I think he has done his job. It's just, he's one of those players that seems to float up when Rangers are floating up. When the Rangers are going down, disappears. And that's a regular thing. As for the shape, if he's not changing the shape, then that would be my biggest concern, because Todd Cantwell is probably the best player in the club to play that position, and I don't know who you sign that's a better 10 for the money that we don't have available to do. That's my concern. If you want to play that 4-2-3-1, Todd Cantwell is the best 10 at the club and the best 10 that we're going to end up with. If you're then going to talk about Diamondi being the 10, that's then not a 10. That's just you're playing an 8 in that role, and then it looks a bit off to me. And then you do get the issues where people moan about 4-2-3-1 because it looks dead negative. It looks like you have no real support to your striker, and it looks like your press is all off. It looks really narrow. All these things that would concern me if it doesn't change. I would love a flat 3 midfield. I think the 4-2-3-1's dead. It had a time and place. It doesn't work anymore. You can't have somebody sitting as that 10 in there. And if you're using an 8, then you're just as well going to a flat 3 and having some sort of rotation that works better for everyone. But then you need natural wingers as well, and that because you need people that can get wide round a striker and also around the front of a striker. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's very clear he wants combative midfielders. So I just don't know if it's 2 or 3 he wants in there.
Yeah, I brought it up because we saw the approach against Ajax on Saturday. Played 4-2-3-1 in attack, and it seemed to shift to a 4-4-2 in defence. In terms of pressing as well, it seemed to shift. Does moving from a 4-2-3-1 in attack to a 4-4-2 in defence, in your opinion, is that beneficial, or is that neither here nor there?
I think a 4-4-2 is how everyone should press. I think Argentina and Brighton are two of the people that I've seen do that best. I think you just have like a 4-4-2 press. It makes the most sense. It's the most simple in its nature. Because all you're really doing is asking one of your 2 pressers, if they get beat, to drop back on the centre mid, and you've got everyone covered again in your 4-2-3. The problem I have is, and it was the problem against Celtic, it looked like we didn't know who was meant to do what at any given time, and it could go to the fullback and bounce into McGregor, and the front 4, if it's the 4-4-2, front 4 are almost taken out with 2 passes, and then nobody recovers. That's my concern, and this is where, if we remove Cantwell from the picture, if we remove Lawrence from the picture, and we turn up at Parkhead in the 4th game of the league season, and the presses are still the same issues, then it is kind of leaning back to what I said and going, I don't think this is the players, by the way. I think this is the way we're being told to press, and players either don't understand it or Celtic are just better at playing around it. That's why I think we've maybe been spoiled a little bit by the fact that we were so well coached under Gerrard by season 3 that it's hard for us now because we've raised our standards, and we've also watched Celtic have Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou as 2 of the 3 previous managers who, by all accounts, pretty much dominated Scottish football, both with and without the ball, and dominated us in those games as well. So I think we are spoiled by both their experience and the positive experience we had with Gerrard, that you just kind of go, well, we know teams can do it. We know we can do it. So is it the coaching? What is it? And I think that's Clement's going to have to compete with that. It doesn't matter what players you sign, as long as we can see the coaching looks right, because you can still press people with 11 non-marquee signings. That's up to you. That's how you do that. Because, like Ian said, this nonsense around you need to get your own players in. Postecoglou's football was being played with Stephen Welsh, Tony Ralston. I can't remember who they had it at the Starfelt in his first couple of games as a bomb scare. Greg Taylor was doing it. Ange Postecoglou didn't involve his players in for a long time, not until January when they got O'Reilly and the 3 Japanese players. He didn't have his players in, and you could see his good style of football. Even though they got beaten that Tynecastle game, you could see exactly how they played after day 1. And I was like, oh, well, I don't think you need your own players. I think you just need somebody that's got conviction as to what their coaching style is and playing style is, and that doesn't get navigated away from. It's very clear all the time.
Yeah, I have to agree with that one. I think there's a lot of focus on Philippe Clement. He's probably managed to take some of it away from him with his comments at the weekend, but there's still a lot of attention on the coaching aspect of it and those certain aspects of the game, as you touched on there, John, that are clearly just what's achieved on a training pitch. They're nothing to do with level or quality of player or creativity at the edge of a box or whatever. They're the basics of football and what can be coached on a football pitch. So plenty of stuff that fans will be paying attention to there that Philippe Clement will need to prove his worth on. Ian, we've spoken up there about we need to bring money in to then be able to spend it on the key positions that we need to find. I think probably the only saleable asset that we have is Jack Butland, and even then he's not. He made a bit of a mess yesterday for the second goal. I'll let him off for the first one, but he made a bit of a mess for the second goal yesterday, and he didn't finish the season in great form either. But I think Butland remains one of our most sellable assets. If you get an offer of £10 million plus, I think you probably have to accept it. Firstly, do you agree that would be the case? And secondly, if that does happen, what do you make of Liam Kelly potentially being our number 1?
Well, Liam Kelly, for a start, was very good yesterday. 2 incredible saves. But I don't think he's cut out to be Rangers' number 1. To be honest, I think he is the backup. And even if Butland stays or goes, will be backup, I'm sure we would then prioritise bringing in a new goalie, maybe a younger goalie, try and repeat the whole bring in cheaper, sell for big kind of thing. But I would still be devastated to see Butland go. I know we all would, but 10 million just doesn't seem enough to me for how important Butland is. Like, he was incredible last season. Some of the saves were a joke. I also think that if Tav does leave, and it was kind of rumoured about a month ago, Butland could be the new captain. I'm kind of all for that. I think he's a standard setter. He seems to have the respect of the whole changing room kind of thing. So I still wouldn't be happy if it was 10 million. I'd be wanting 15 million plus. The whole he's English, the homegrown stuff, he's going to be going back down south as well. Boost the value up a little bit. When we see certain fees for certain people going about, I think 10 million's a bit of a steal if it was for Butland for there. So I wouldn't be keen on it. And if he was going, I don't think Kelly's quite cut out to be our number 1 just yet. I think he's got a kind of long way to go before he's in there. I'd rather we kept McCrory and put him as number 1 rather than Kelly. So if Butland goes at this point, I'd be crushed. To be honest, I'm needing 15 plus million kind of thing for this one to be happy about it.
So you're nodding in agreement there, John. Are you in the same view as Ian?
No, it was more the McCrory comment. I think if we're in a position where Jack Butland could have been sold and can be sold, then McCrory's sanctioned transfer should never have happened, because I think he's the one that I would rather have be the number one. The only thing I will say is Liam Kelly came through at Rangers the whole time, so a lot of the things he was indoctrinated in, and it's a lot of the same things that we've talked about here, the mentality, what it's like to be a Rangers goalie. He made a ton of mistakes last year at Motherwell, but his volume of shots faced, Liam Kelly might be the keeper that is better concentrating and doing less and having the moments he needs to call himself on, and maybe would become a Rangers goalkeeper and just have that spark. Because I think for Scotland, he's not looked great in the games that he's appeared, but then it's the same issue. It's the volume of shots he's facing. That wouldn't happen at Rangers. It is more a concentration, because you might only have one save to make in the 90. You need to be able to make it. He could surprise us. I think Liam Kelly's a weird one. I feel like he's always had the distribution, which is a big thing for us. But I've never seen him in a circumstance whereby he has nothing to do for 80 minutes and has to pull out a save, and that's going to be the test. And that's why I think Robbie McCrory always surprised me and never got more of an effort, because every time he came in, it was big games, and he never, maybe one mistake, but I mean, if I think of the Old Firm game and the Aliskirk game away, he was brilliant in both games, and it just seemed like he was probably at the level that, I don't know, maybe there's something that wasn't quite right on a consistent basis. Maybe didn't always look good in training. I mean, in games, he kind of did everything that he was required of all the time and at a good level.
Yeah, I felt McCrory was unlucky last season, actually. Obviously, if a player like Jack Butland's available to you, you're going to bring him in. But I thought if he'd been our starting goalkeeper last season, I don't think many people would have complained. That might have changed had he made a few howlers in his first few games, mind you. But I think on what he'd shown beforehand, as you say, John, I think he was playing well at that point. Thankfully, that's all a hypothetical situation at this moment in time, and Jack Butland is going to remain a Rangers player, and Rangers do seem to want to keep him as a high priority. So that's positive. John, if given all that we've discussed today, if we have to make the bare minimum number of improvements, you can only sign three players for three different positions. What are the key ones for Rangers that you're like, yes, we absolutely have to buy someone for that?
If there was money, if we were to turn around tomorrow and be able to sell Tavernier, I'd be comfortable that Dujon Sterling's the right back going forward. And I don't think I think we change the dynamic. We have to sit down and realise that we're never going to see Tavernier again, that those numbers are never going to be replicated. We're going to have a right back that contributes a couple of goals and a couple of assists, and that's going to be it. He's going to do his job. You need a right winger in front of him then that's going to pick up the slack for what Tavernier is. So I'd like a right winger. If you told me you could use money and reinvest and still go get Lawrence Shankland, I would buy Lawrence Shankland every day of the week for whatever fee. I think it's probably 1.6 million is what you'll get him for now. Whatever we want, just give him it. Just pay him. Just go and give Hearts some money. Lawrence Shankland is somebody to me that guarantees us 30 plus goals in the SPFL. Guarantees us it. If he's fit for all the games, he scores 30 plus goals for Rangers. It's not even a debate. And then maybe a centre half, maybe if there was like a really top, if John Searle's brother was available, I'd take John Searle's brother and have both of them playing, to be honest. So I think that a right winger and Lawrence Shankland would be the key. I think if you get that right, because I think Conor Baron, Diamande, and then one other in midfield probably sorts the spine of the team out. If you've got a good striker, a good centre half, and you've still got Jack Butland, then I think the spine's probably the thing that dictates what you're going to do. And then if you've got a right winger, whether it's signing Sima back, whether it's signing a whole new person altogether, a winger that's going to create and score, that's all I'm really interested in.
Yeah, Ian, I think I was very much of the opinion, a right winger, a leading the line striker that starts every game, and
yep.
I think we still need a bit more depth in central midfield, so I would probably buy another central midfielder. Where do you stand?
It's a tricky one because it kind of comes down to formation, but I want a destroyer type midfielder in middle of the park. Sort of what Sterling done for us a lot last season, but with a bit more technical ability to be a midfielder kind of thing. So, again, bit of a spoiler for what we're probably going to talk about last there, but
we can kind of merge the transfer rumours there. So we'll bring those in anyway to this part of the discussion, and you can finish your answer, Ian. So, yeah, as over the weekend, linked with, I'm going to go with Joan Jordan, 30-year-old Sevilla holding midfielder. He's started for them. He's been there, I think, 4 seasons now. We started for them the first 3, played pretty much every game. Last season, they seemed to be out the picture a little bit, and Rangers have, it's been reported that Rangers have submitted a loan bid. I think he's on about €70,000 a week or something like that. There's no way Rangers are going to pay anywhere close to that, and Sevilla have said they want these full wages covered, so that might well be the end of that rumour. But the profile of midfielder, I guess, it fits into what you were saying there, Ian. And the other one is Cheikh Niasse from Young Boys, strong ball carrying and ball winning midfielder, only 24, so very much fits into that age. I think he was rumoured to be of interest to a lot of top clubs maybe about 6-7 months ago or so. So if there seemed to be a lot of encouragement on social media if Rangers managed to nip in there first and get him, that it can be a really positive for us. But is that the kind of profile of player you want to see?
That's exactly it. Yeah, see someone who can do what a Stephen Davis could do and just get a foot on the ball, dictate play, and just kind of try and run the show a little bit, but while also being a bit of a protection for the defence. I think towards the end of last season, like you are both quite right, we could do with another centre-back who we all can rely on, but at the same time, our defence was pretty solid last season. Whether it was down to Butland at times, another story, but defence is pretty good until the end of the season when it just kind of went to shit. But defence is pretty solid. If you just get someone in front of them that can let Diomande just have free rein to go get forward from still centre mid, but just bomb forward as he wishes, and you've got someone beside him like a Raskin or a Baron just kind of ticking things along, it's suddenly a much more complete midfield that complements each other very well. It just needs that kind of tackler in there. Just win the ball back, move it on, and in games when we're like 1-0 up, 2-1 up, leading into the last 10-15 minutes, just foot on the ball, calm things right down. Because obviously that's the kind of job that Lundstrom's been asked to do the last few years, and he's just was never that player. I actually felt bad for Lundstrom quite a lot, in the sense that we tried to make him that like kind of deep playmaker, try to get on the ball and start moves, and he just couldn't do it. Didn't know when to go long, when to go short, when to sit beside the centre-backs, when to get up. Just wasn't his game. Whereas these two, not going to lie, I've not watched a lot of them, just seen the kind of YouTube clips as well would have done the last few days, but they tick the boxes for the kind of guy that I want to see in there, just to kind of complete the midfield, and then suddenly that's a strong, balanced, proper midfield for once. That's kind of what I'm wanting to see going forward.
Yeah, John, what do you make of these 2 links? I think what struck me most was, I guess, the profile of player, but also the level they're playing at. I think it's a step up from kind of where we've been shopping in recently and in recent past. I felt like it's almost a level higher than where we've been looking, and I found that quite encouraging. What did you make of the links, I guess?
Well, that to be honest, that's the thing that concerns me though, as in one breath we've got no money to do this massive rebuild, and we're also then linked with somebody who's getting paid 70 grand a week. I don't know where the truth lies. I don't know what the reality is. But then I wouldn't have thought we were ever signing Aaron Ramsey on loan. I wouldn't have thought we'd ever get Fabio Silva on loan. I didn't think we could have got Mo Diamande because the clubs had been linked with before. So maybe there is just, we've got good scouting networks just now, and Coppin has got good relationships with the right people that he's able to have these discussions and have us in, because I think he's probably someone that's working his ass off, and outside of the odd tweet that people are saying that they're not doing it, and I think he's probably working his ass off with every connection that he has to try and find the level of player that Clement needs to improve. And if it is the latter of the 2 links, and it's the ball carrying midfielder, it does seem to, I don't know a lot about the Sevilla player to be fair, but I know more about Niasse, and it does seem to be that kind of player that he likes. Like Hefty's quite similar for a left back, loves to drive with the ball. Cortez, the winger, loves to drive with the ball. Diamande likes driving with the ball. He seems to maybe like this player that can get people at the park without necessarily maybe having don't want to go back to criticising, but maybe there isn't a style of play. Maybe sometimes he needs the individuals to be able to drive people and drive the positions forward just from himself. So the second link would make more sense to me for the type of profile that Clement seems to be getting linked with before, and the types of players he has already signed for us.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how the rest of this summer plays out. I think we saw the flurry of activity at the start, where plenty of young, promising players kind of came in through the door, and it was very much expected that was the first phase of the transfer window, and the second phase would be the 2, 3, 4 more experienced players who would maybe spend a bit of money on, or would come in on a free transfer but slightly higher wages, and that would be the kind of profile of player that we look to next. I think with the with what Philippe Clement's confirmed over the weekend, that's kind of up in the air a wee bit now, and whether that will happen before this first game of the competitive season, who knows? We're kind of waiting and seeing now, which is a bit of a nervy position considering how much of an overhaul that we believe as fans was needed this summer. How much overhaul you can see that the manager believes is needed, but whether there's the resources there to do it, it's obviously going to be a long-term rebuild. It's not all going to be fixed in one transfer window. It never is all fixed in one transfer window, but it'll be really interesting to see how the rest of this summer plays out. I have to say my hopes and expectations have been dampened fairly heavily this weekend. I'm trying to work out where to now position them for next season. But thank you very much to John and Iain for joining us. That's been a really enjoyable pod, despite the topics that we covered. Thank you very much to you all for listening. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do like the video. It helps us massively. Please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your pods across audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. It's really beneficial, and it obviously helps make sure that you don't miss out on any content as we go forward. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Until next time, goodbye.